in Canaanite practice, through the altar, the destruction of a child. If you are a royal child in the Canaanite tribes, the family may feed you the blood and the meat of these children, which will then give you an infusion of more growth hormone. And people have to remember that you wouldn't be sacrificing a child if it didn't work. Absolutely abominable practice. God will get rid of tribes that participate in that, and I believe rightly so. Right? God is just. People who practice witchcraft and those dark arts, they talk about being able to shapeshift, and they can't do it until they allow the demonic to enter into them, to allow them to take over their bodies. So these Amalekites then could shapeshift into these animals, the animals that they have around their tribe. Therefore, you don't want this practice to remain, so God said, destroy them all, every last one of them, including the animals. You have to commit great sin. That entity has to come into you, so they require you to commit a great sin. Now, what happens when you commit great sin? You weaken the veil, right? So the veil gets weakened usually through the killing of the most innocent. Yet again, that opens up the veil. The demons can come through that spirit realm.
Welcome to the Days of Noah podcast, where we talk all things biblical, supernatural, and strange. We conclude our conversation with Enoch Putris from the channel The Rundown of Our Reality, which you can find on YouTube and Rumble and BitChute. In this conversation, we switch gears from the prayer topic that we talked last time, which was from Enoch's video, The Anatomy of a Prayer, to talking about his video, The Anatomy of a Skinwalker. How is it that the occult practices are able to actually shapeshift someone into an animal or even impersonating another person? There are unfortunately dark powers out there that people involve themselves in, which are abominations to God. And we get into understanding how all of that works. The occult practitioners in our world just love to mimic and counterfeit and perverse the power of God and do things on their terms in detestable, abhorrent ways. Guys, make sure to check out Enoch's channel, The Rundown of Our Reality, and also his library of files that he has made available online. Thanks as always for coming back each and every week listening. We do appreciate each and every one of you. And if you want to support our work, the easiest way to do that is to just leave us a positive or 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. And remember to share a link to the episodes with your family and friends. So with that, let's conclude our conversation with Enoch. So let's shift gears into skinwalkers, anatomy of a skinwalker, or some call a shapeshifter. And so you have a theory on the Nephilim resurgence after the flood due to ritual sin. And I think that is maybe a good place to start, because as I was going through your video on that, as well as some of the clips and links that you had tied to it, I went back and listened to some Blurry Creatures episodes with there was a Navajo guy, John Dover, and there was Chief Joseph Riverwind. Some very instructive things on skinwalkers and how all of this works. But maybe let's start with kind of the Amalekites and the theory of Nephilim resurgence after the flood.
Well, since writing this, and there's been a lot more understanding that has come to me with the resurgence of Nephilim and the Rephaim. The resurgence first, and this is more for the Rephaim, or the new creation of giants. And I don't think these giants were as big as the Nephilim. Just so we're clear. So when I say giants, I'm talking you got a 7, 8, 9 footer, and maybe even 11.
Yeah, footer. Gary Wayne calls those the hybrid giants.
Yeah.
Not the full blown direct angelic mating with humans, but this was a giant mating with a human, or other possibilities that I think you're going to talk about.
Yeah. So one of the and this is something you can observe today, by the way, with that I talk about, in case people are like, well, I don't know, there, this. So one of the things that we learn about is in Canaanite practice, through the altar, the destruction of a child. Well, there's something that baby, or that fetus, that human child within the womb has, because the growth of that child is immense during this time, up until they stop growing. Like they have, again, then you get these growth spurts. You get, but if you are growing already yourself, and you are a royal child in the Canaanite tribes, then the family may feed you the blood and the meat of these children, which will then give you an infusion of more growth hormone, of more of the hormone that causes you to grow, because you are still growing yourself. So basically, what one of the purposes, and people have to remember that you wouldn't be sacrificing a child if it didn't work, right? I mean, that's
if there wasn't some benefit to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Because
right.
we all
a perk.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
A very evil, demonic perk, but yeah, I mean, they did fertility things, and they wanted their crops to grow, and all this other stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And so when they ingest all of this growth hormone, then they themselves grow immensely and become super strong, super tall, and also they're demonized. They're highly demonized. And when you have those demons in you, you also become stronger. Police talk about these people that they try to hold down, and they have 6 guys on this tiny 108-pound woman, and they can't contain her, right? And she breaks free and runs off. That's on video. I remember seeing a while back now, but yeah. So one of the ways is through a ritual of the drinking blood and the eating of the flesh of children and fetuses. So absolutely abominable practice, I would say, and dang tootin', God will get rid of tribes that participate in that, and I believe rightly so. Right? God is just.
Absolutely, that's just what our last Gary Wayne episode was about. He breaks down all of those tribes in his second book, and I think apologetically, just really making a good case for all of the antagonizers of the Old Testament God as this genocidal maniac. That no, he was doing a very good thing, and if you had one house on your block that was terrorizing the neighborhood, you would cry out to the police to deal with this family that is causing havoc.
Mm-hmm.
Agnostic, atheist, or whatever, you would cry out for justice.
Absolutely. And and hopefully, and the police don't always show up, right? And depending on where you are, whereas Jesus will always be there. So
then the Amalekites in particular, and that can be translated as bloodlickers, right?
yeah, the bloodlickers.
They were known to be shapeshifters, have that ability. And then when Saul was told to kill them, and I have the verse here in 1 Samuel 15, the Lord Almighty says, I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Oh yeah, because they were going after like the stragglers in the traveling party of Israelites, right?
Mm.
And he says, now go attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men, women, children, and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys.
Yeah, why kill the animals?
And that, why the animals? Unpack that a bit for us.
Well, the other gifts of the demonic realm are the ability to shapeshift. And again, when you talk or you listen to the people who practice witchcraft and those dark arts, they talk about being able to shapeshift. And they talk about, and they can't do it until they allow the demonic to enter into them, to allow them to take over their bodies. Right. So these Amalekites then could shapeshift into these animals, the animals that they have around their tribe. Therefore, you don't want this practice to remain. So God said, destroy them all, every last one of them, including the animals, because they can shapeshift into the animal. And hey, the animals could also be harboring something too through other rituals. That's speculation, obviously. Well, I mean, all of this, some people could say, "Oh, it's all speculation." Fair enough, we weren't there, but I mean, we're breaking it down also through what we see today. And oh, by the way, with that blood licking, I said it's something that you could see today. If you go to Africa, what do? They kill their cattle and they drink that blood, and then all of a sudden there are 7.5 foot men in Africa. They're crazy tall because they consume the blood, and they do it right at kill. It's still warm, and they put it into a bowl and they pass it all around the tribe. And so these children are getting this blood filled with growth hormone. I mentioned that. Wow. Yeah, I mentioned that there's real life practice. I didn't mention what that practice was. I apologize. So that's what that real life practice is. Drinking the blood. Thou shalt not drink the blood.
And that has connection, we think, to what the French came across in Jekyll Island, the Temecula's, mm-hmm. that caused them to flee to Florida and found St. Augustine, the oldest city in America.
Yeah, could you imagine you're going? There's these super tall, massive tribe that they seem like decent people, and then they start doing their evening rituals when their demons start coming out, and they start eating babies and feeding babies to their children, right? You come across that, and yeah, that's let's not stay here.
Yeah, we're out of here. Well, and you hear rumors of this stuff modern day with Hollywood and things that go on in tunnels between mansions and deep underground military bases and all sorts of things that it all's connected to, again, the worship of these Canaanite gods and
mm-hmm. Bone Tomahawk,
the same god.
So, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
As I spurt, Bone Tomahawk is a movie where the natives eat human, and morph their bodies. And anyway, carry on. Sorry, I apologize. I interrupted.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Of course, they didn't show them as giants, I don't think, in that movie, if I recall. But yeah, so this stuff is going on, and and I think God's laws, when he's forbidding certain practices and disciplining Israel for falling in league with this stuff, we're giving evil entities spiritual legalities when we do that stuff. And so, I think of it going on modern day as probably something that is, people are seeking, as we said, the benefit, the perk to these things. They want the power that they get from it. And so Saul's disobedience to save the best of these animals and spare King Agag, I don't recall in scripture, but I believe there was some ramifications in the bloodline for him not following through on that.
Yeah, he was eventually murdered. His family was eventually murdered by an Amalekite child, I believe it was. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So to become a skinwalker, shapeshifter, to have that ability, I know you talk about it, and some of the other references I had talk about it with Chief Joseph Riverwind and John Dover, who is a Navajo ranger that was a guest on Blurry Creatures. Talk about what is required of a person in the occult world to get that ability. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, you have to commit great sin. That entity has to come into you, so they require you to commit a great sin. Now, I believe obviously it's purpose. It's purpose based, but the reason is you have to create such a sin that they have absolute control over you. That's the contract. That's in the negotiation. So if you fully and completely destroy what you love the most on this earth, then the demon will give you the powers, right? That, and there's other rituals that you have to perform, which I believe is, I don't want to talk too much about that, but the consuming of the individual, drinking of that blood, and it's just the absolute destructive nature that you have to perform in order to get those powers. No, we didn't talk about the other things that I've discovered about the return of the Nephilim.
Yeah, jump back to that.
Yeah, so there's now some people may take offense to this. Please understand that I am not trying to take away any. We need to really understand our history. And so people talk about Noah's Ark that they found in Turkey, right? And there was, what also did they find and I believe that's an ark. I believe that was a boat that survived the flood, but I don't believe it's Noah's Ark anymore. I used to believe it was Noah's Ark, but I don't anymore. And there's enough evidence to actually to believe that is. And I also believe that it's not fully being destroyed by the ancient bloodlines because of this. That is the Nephilim Ark, because in the Bible it says, well, they were all destroyed on the earth. No, they were basically decimated on the earth. Decimated doesn't mean fully eradicated, completely and totally. I believe that was a Freemason, because the Freemasons come in and they teach falsehoods, biblical falsehoods, and then it spreads within. That's why you have so many dominations, so many arguments of what the Bible says. And I believe that decimation of the Nephilim isn't quite accurate as to them all dying. That is the Nephilim Ark. That ark contains a lot of metalwork, which we know Noah didn't do metalwork. We know that the evil line of Cain did metalwork through Enoch, and what was that was oh my goodness, it starts with a T. My brain is anyway.
Tubal Cain.
Tubal Cain. Thank you. Psh, yeah, yes, son. All right, so Tubal Cain,
nailed it.
Tubal Cain did metalwork and taught the because it was the fallen that taught all this sort of stuff to man. And so there's a whole bunch of metalwork, and also they found giant bodies, kind of ding ding ding. They found giant bodies around the ark, buried there. And when we watch if you have watched the Noah movie, right? They were supposedly giants. They were super tall people. And that's because they were actually the Nephilim. They're trying to argue that we were much larger back then. And the real ark, it landed on Mount Everest, basically, and slid down the mountain as the water drained. Now, the argument for this comes through the Book of Jubilees, because it tells you exactly where the real ark was, and it was nowhere close to Turkey. Turkey is where the Nephilim ark fell. So Nephilim survived around that area. And what's close to Turkey? The Canaanite tribes. All right. The Canaanite tribes.
Okay. I was waiting.
That silence was a little too long there. Yeah, for radio. And then the second way that Nephilim survived the flood. Well, a lot of people drink the Clue every single day. I don't mean water. Coffee. Starbucks. Starbucks worship who? The Marine Kingdom. So you can't drown a marine Nephilim, a marine-based Nephilim. And that's why the Marine Kingdom became the main kingdom of Satan's kingdom, is from the marine and the marine spirits, and because he can't take that side out in a flood. Anyway, and
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, some things for our listeners and us to dig into and see what we think. But that's interesting. Yeah. So you have these atrocities back then.
Yes.
You have them continuing. People wanting that occult power to become a shapeshifter, and the sacrifice of a loved one as a final act required to become that. I wonder about your thoughts on portals as well, letting giants and chimeras and things into our world, a possible second or repeated incursion. And then as I think about that, I think about the different. It's hard, as Tim Alberino likes to say. We can't conceive of dimensions. That's like we try to paint a picture of it, but is it overlaid over our world? Like dimensionally, right here in the room with me, there's other dimensions. It's not, thousands of light years away. It's right here. I can't see it and interact with it necessarily, but it's overlaid, and these portals open up to, because I was kind of thinking like, Bigfoot is interdimensional, or, giants and chimeras and other creatures.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data worldwide, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $100 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZCA. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZCA right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Passing in and out. Where do they reside? Well, they might be 10 feet from me, but I don't experience them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you want to understand a different dimension, just talk to people who can see in the spirit, right? Listen to them, and then you kind of get your idea. Hollywood shows us, because what do the occultists do? They get shortcuts so that they can see in the spirit by letting the demonic come into them, and then all of a sudden they're flying in the second heaven, through the spirit realm, over to almost instantaneously over into the other world. Now, one show that I just watched was Dr. Sleep, I think it was, which was the continuation of Stephen King's The Hotel one, where the evil hotel with Jack Nicholson. Here's Johnny. The Shining. Thank you. So Dr. Sleep was the continuation of The Shining.
Colorado, I believe. Yeah, the hotel they used in the movie.
Okay.
And in there, they what do they have? They have a bunch of witches that consume blood and consume flesh, so that they can stay young forever and have all these amazing powers. So, and then they literally show you the movement, and they don't show you in the Marvel way that they show Doctor Strange moving in the spirit realm. They show you, the dark occult, because these are evil people, and right, that are so is Doctor Strange, but we won't get into that right now. Anyway, so I completely lost your question now as I went off on my little tangent, and you're so patient with
just how portals and dimensions could be overlaid right
in
over
the spirit
top
realm,
of us.
and seeing in the spirit, right? Thank you. When I saw in the spirit, I saw entities, but I didn't like the way I saw it. If you look at an old TV, and you'd see the snow, then you got that snow there. It was like that, only it was black and gold. And then I'd see the little like gnome thing, like, because it was about that big, I don't know, about 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall, and I saw the face, like this kind of, like, you saw the eye sockets and the mouth, and it was right next to my bed, and I just turned around and immediately started praying. That was the first time, and the second time was in my room, and I was in, and then there was a third time, and again it was that gold thing, and then the third time was in my room, but it was different. It was red and black, and so when I saw it, and I instantly prayed, and I believe that was an actual person, not a some in the spirit realm. I think I was being remote viewed at that particular time in the spirit realm. That's I have the only evidence I have of that is I feel it in the spirit, that it was an individual. I'm like, that's different. That's different. And then I prayed it away, cast it out. So portals, spirit realms. What happens when you commit great sin? You weaken the veil, right? So the veil gets weakened, and when the veil is weakened, or a hole is punched through usually through the killing of the most innocent, yet again, that opens up the veil. The demons can come through that spirit realm. That seems to be the process. Like once you learn all this stuff, everything kind of starts to make sense. You learn why the occult create these massive bloody wars, especially World War I, World War II, and now we're about to head into World War III, I believe this year. we understand why this happens, because it's a blood sacrifice that we are committing across the earth. And if you're going to have a fall of 500 million people, which is the through the Deagle report, 500 million, half a billion people, that's the loss of a pretty on such a massive scale that could literally completely destroy the veil. And that's
really interesting. I'd never thought of that in terms of how the tribulation and end times things play out as evil reaches its fullness. That a lot of this death is part of that. The dark side gaining strength. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, and the veil is no longer is no longer there, which the veil to me is the great restrainer, because when you break down the veil, what happens? It no longer restrains the demons from coming.
Right. Yeah, and if it is the Holy Spirit and we're taken out, then then the Holy Spirit is not functionally on the earth as we are right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of connections to. Well, maybe you could talk to this. Ancient apostate Hebrews who worshiped Canaanite gods might actually be Native Americans. There might be connections to that and to some modern Native American practices. Now, full disclosure, I'm not trying to disparage anyone with Native heritage, but where we do see this having a connection, that's kind of my question there.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of archaeological evidence of that, which I point out. Boats existed at the flood, so boats didn't. The ability to travel to the New World didn't come in the Age of Sail. That is a falsehood, 100% made up to give us the illusion of what we believe today. Everything we know is a lie, so we need to do that discovery. The Ark was created during Noah's flood, so they knew how to build a boat back then, and that knowledge would still exist. So being able to travel, and that includes the Rephaim, the Nephilim, and so they would,
and particularly the Phoenician and Philistines, right, were seafaring.
100%, and they're the ones that built the world trade. And they're the ones who went out and grabbed the metals, the copper. For example, there's a great copper mine around Toronto, the Toronto area,
and the Great Lakes,
as
well.
Well, yeah, that's the Toronto area, Great Lakes.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Pardon me, I'm Canadian, so forgive me for
that's okay.
Using Canadian geography, confusing the Americans.
We can see it from either side of the pond there.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So when it comes to natives, the natives didn't actually come, or how we're told that they got there. They didn't actually get there that way. They either joined with the Nephilim, or they were taken by the Nephilim, which Jeremiah talks about quite a bit, and they were one of the tribes of Israel, and so they have a lot of God's promises. If
willingly or like as slaves,
either or depends.
Yeah,
right? It depends on, like, the tribe of Dan. The whole reason why it disappears is because it willingly left. Right, so that's why Dan's gone. Dan doesn't show up in Revelation as one of the tribes of the 144,000. Excuse me, but the Cherokee, their language, their writing is almost identical, is extremely similar to Hebrew, as an example.
Wow.
Right? And that's when I found out after someone posted that. And I'm like, that would have been good to put in as well. But
wow, that's fascinating.
Right? Isn't it? So there's these evil practices, but there's of the blood drinking and all that sort of teaching that came from Canaan, and also there is the language that came over, and I believe that a lot of the tribes here are going to be leaving Canada and the United States very shortly through God in the real building of Israel, not the synagogue of Satan that has it currently.
Yeah, we see metals and artifacts from the Mideast found in North America. Phoenician and Canaanite altars. You got structures and petroglyphs similar to Canaanites found in North America, South America. So there's all these connection points, and I think that's maybe the overall theme that I want to point out to this Skinwalker topic is not only is it kind of fascinating and unfortunately kind of gross about what people have to do, but they are connection points to the larger Genesis 6 defilement of humanity and connecting it to history and how it proliferated all across the earth.
Yeah, exactly. And it's traceable because the Canaanite altars are shown all over the earth, right?
Just like the one that Tim Bentz dealt with that Mr. Rockefeller built his house upon.
Yep, exactly. And another interesting thing is I'm working at helping Americans who realize that America is about to fall. We don't have to get into that. It's a touchy subject for some, but America's about to fall. So I'm trying to create a haven for those Christians who want to be prayer warriors going to Vanuatu. And Vanuatu was a known giant location where the grandfathers of those tribes are the ones who got rid of the last of the giants there. And they're Canaanite altars. And they ate human flesh for the dark demonic powers that it would give. And then when God came there, when people taught, they found out that magic at the time, that magic was far more powerful. And then they learned, it's the Holy Spirit. It's the one true power. And it's absolutely fascinating. The amount of Christians over there is pretty huge because they still, unlike us out in the West, they knew exactly what that evil was. And there is still memory of that evil within the tribes. And so God is there and still is being worshipped there. It's fascinating.
Wow.
Absolutely fascinating.
Some of the videos put out, like by Ray Comfort on the California fires and talking about Hollywood and their pattern of mocking God. And I commented on the video, which I agree with all that, but that's happening and that is their pattern. But I commented under his video. I said, this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about the Freemasonic, blood-drinking, cannibalistic, pedophilic, child-sacrificing, child trafficking network that these elites are part of. Like the mocking, the mocking is just what bubbles out from the darkness of their hearts.
And here's the other thing that isn't really discussed too much. Did you notice some of the houses that were utterly and completely destroyed?
I have not dug into that.
Well, P. Diddy's house, all of these Hollywood mega stars who, because they're part of the Masonic structure, will be getting their money back through the insurance so that they can build again. But any evidence that was held in those houses would have been utterly and completely destroyed.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Burning it to the ground, just like they got rid of evidence of all sorts of things right after the fact to make sure people can't research it, whether it's 9/11 or Sandy Hook or all sorts of different things.
Yep.
So I wonder, to get your thoughts on this, if there's a connection to Satanism and becoming a vampire or werewolf.
Yes.
To becoming a skinwalker. So I don't know if you've ever heard Bill Schneblin's testimony. He used to be a druid, a Mormon, a Satanist, a witch, all this stuff before he became a Christian. So he has a very deep firsthand knowledge of the occult world. And he said that when he got to a certain level in Satanism, he and colleagues of his that got to that level were given the choice to have the ability to become a werewolf or a vampire. And he had seen both, and the contortion of the body that the werewolf goes through. He's like, I think I'll take the vampire. It's a little sexier. I'm using, he didn't say it that way, but I'm saying it that way.
Less painful. Yeah, absolutely less painful.
Less painful. And he said he literally lived on blood and communion wafers for a year. So I wonder if there's some connection to, I don't know that in Satanism they have to do atrocities to gain power, but what are your thoughts on any connections there to the same type of shape-shifting ability?
Well, with from my research, the whole vampire werewolf thing, which is also taught in Skyrim, by the way, the video game Skyrim, it's the right hand or left hand path. So right hand is vampire, left hand or lichen path is the left hand path. So and the occult love to create dualism. So and these choices that you must choose if you're going to be going down specific roads. So in that particular option, families have no choice. They have to choose one of the paths. And so, yeah, you have what is also taught in that TV show, with the men of letters and, oh my goodness, what was that? And they had the fallen angels and they were creating the Nephilim. Supernatural. Thank you. So,
wow.
So that's,
I'm helping you out a lot today.
You are. I just we're like this.
We're tracking. We're tracking.
We're totally. So, but if you listen to Nathan Reynolds as well, Nathan Reynolds, his YouTube channel, The Linen Road. See, I couldn't remember it because I was looking for Nathan Reynolds and his YouTube channel.
In your notes?
Well, no, on actually YouTube. So I'm trying to do two things at once. I cannot do. I can talk and breathe, but
all right. Let it be known, Enoch cannot multitask.
Exactly.
All right.
That's
continuing.
Right. That's right. So he goes deep into that, and there's one thing that I'm not a fan of when it comes to podcasters. When there is podcasters, who go after the money side as well. Not that they're going after money. We all need to survive. That's not it at all. But then they hide stuff that can really help behind a paywall, that can really help people to understand something. They put it behind a paywall and it can really help them. And Confessionals podcast does that way too often.
And if I could just get on my soapbox for 30 seconds, yeah. We don't do that for that very reason, because I feel like if you have an amazing guest, don't make that a premium content, get that out.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you're getting less downloads.
Yeah.
So why would you do that? If it's important, get it out there. But yeah, go ahead.
So Nathan Reynolds gets into that heavy, but half of his stuff is in that premium content. So we have someone who has the premium content. We accessed it and I put it in my library. So if you guys want to listen to it, it's in my library. Just type in Nathan Reynolds and you'll find the whole conference. It's like 4 hours.
Do you make that public? People can look up, or is that just people can reach out to you and you'll send them like a way to access the cloud?
It's premium content, so they need to subscribe. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Hypocrite.
Hypocrite. It is available. It's available in my library. Links in the description of going to my last video. The link's there to the library. Just type in Nathan Reynolds in the search engine.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data worldwide, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $100 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZCA. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZCA right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
And
okay, I'll post that with this
but it's
podcast.
But you learn about the lichen and the werewolf in that as an example, and it is, and they get into it in the premium content, which just annoyed me to no end. The other guys you talk about, Blurry Creatures, do that too, and I putting money before education like that is
I've had people ask about, making a subscription or paid premium thing for our show, which, maybe someday I'll do, but I'm like, well, I want to offer something extra and I don't know what that is. And I definitely will not, hide certain episodes. I just don't think that's the way to go. Okay. So John Dover, when he was on Blurry Creatures, the Navajo Ranger, mentioned something that really caught my attention. And it caught my attention because Luke and I, by the time you guys are listening to this right now, these episodes will already be out from Doug Riggs' widow, Lori. And it was just a fantastic time of a woman of God who talked about Doug and their ministry to counsel people in SRA. And we wanted to dig into that because there were some rumors floating around about Doug kind of being a double agent, because people are saying that they saw them at the ritual. They saw him doing this and that. And so I wanted to dig into that and go, well, what about cloning? What about the ability that someone could be trying to slander him?
Mm-hmm.
Well, John Dover said this little tidbit in that episode. He said, when it comes to shapeshifters, they need the DNA of someone, and that they can actually not just become an animal, but they can actually become you if they have your DNA and appear as you to people that even know you.
Yeah. Doppelgangers, masks even, right? You don't even have to go as far as shape-shifting. There's masks.
Oh, yeah, the masks. Yes.
I mean, you guys, go back and watch Mission Impossible from start to finish again. And you will see...
Like all of them?
Yeah.
Or one in particular?
All of them. All of them. Because they were...
The Tom Cruise ones you're referring to?
The Tom Cruise movies, ones? Yeah. They're littered with revelation of the method. And you see the mask thing used all the time to fool people into believing something constantly. And also there was a excellent, what's his name, who played Scotty in the remakes of Star Trek, when he joins, one of the first things that he says is relative to what we're going through right now. And I wish I could remember it, but I'm just like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what's happening, right? And this one came out in like 2004 or 2006, I can't remember, somewhere around there. All the way back then, like everything's so planned and scripted, it's not even funny. But anyway, yeah. So the DNA, that's called pleomorphism. There's actually a scientific name for this. And what people need to understand about the occult is they have infiltrated and created most of our society and what has been offered to us. Our medical system is built by the occult, and under the illusion that it's good for us, right? I mean, look at all the who built the healthcare system, but the pharmaceutical companies, and we know all about those guys now, don't we? So when you give your blood, when you give a stool sample, when you give any of that part to the medical community, and it's going to be destroyed, that's an assumption that they give you, that it's going to be destroyed. I believe that DNA that they grab is used, number one, to create a doppelganger of you that is being used. And there's two types of doppelgangers. There's one that exists in reality, and then there's one that exists digitally. And so if you understand quantum entanglement, if we watch my medbed video, understand quantum entanglement, you will understand how our minds, unless we have the helmet of salvation, how our minds get wiped in the Great Deception, right? Even the elect would be deceived. These bodies can be programmed with other thoughts. And if you listen to some of the prophets that we have today, they talk about in the future, we who are in Christ are walking down the street, and our friends who were not in Christ won't even recognize us anymore. They just walk right by. And that's because their minds get completely altered and we are protected. It's crazy thinking about that. And I know how insane I sound right now. I am fully aware. But guys, the amount of research that I've done, this is real. And quantum entanglement is a real thing. And the reprogramming of a mind is a real thing. It's crazy, but it's crazy, especially when you hear it for the first time. But so pleomorphism, just so people are aware, is there's a man named Dr. Robert O. Young, and he has a channel, and you can go to his channel and get lots of neat little details. But he teaches you how the body really works, not what we're taught in our so-called healthcare system. And when our body is unhealthy to acidic, for example, he has captured a blood cell. I believe it was a red blood cell. I think I made this video in February, so of last year, so of 2024. So I'm going by memory. I believe it was a red blood cell that converted into anthrax and then back to a red blood cell. Right, so it's converting into something that can utterly destroy you, and then back to something that will help you. And then later on, a couple of years later, he observed the exact same thing in someone else, where it turned into, I believe it was yeast. I think it turned into yeast, and then it turned back to a blood cell again. I don't know if that was a red blood cell. It might have been a different cell. But the point of it is, at that micro level, we see it change. And so if you have something that is that truly understands how the world works, which is things in the spirit realm, like demonic entities, and you allow them to come into your body, then they can do, or should be able to do, the same thing, which is morph you into something else through, just think about frequency, and when you take that DNA, you are using something like quantum entanglement, because it's something else, it's some other DNA and you're mimicking that DNA. So yeah, it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and as far as frequency, I think it was something in researching this, I don't know if it was in your Skinwalker video or some of the other ones I came across, is that a frequency or sound is used to change into a creature. So they do these rituals to sacrifice the loved one to have the ability, but then when they want to do that, there's some sort of sound or frequency that's used to trigger the event.
Exactly. Yeah. And in my, I don't say this in my med bed, but I continue to learn about all this sort of stuff. In the medbed video, you learn about that they're using toroidal fields, right? So for people who aren't aware, it's, if you look at a magnet, right, it creates like a donut, and that's a toroidal field, and a field of a magnetic field. And if you go into Star Trek, right? Star Trek, they have those. Picard will go to the computer and go Earl Grey tea hot or whatever. Sometimes he picks a specific Celsius. Anyway, and it's never the same. Anyway, but he'll go to the generator there, or the replicator, that's the word, and he will create it. What's going on in there? Well, there's a toroidal field, and they kind of show it as the replicator is creating the Earl Grey tea hot, but what's actually going on in there is the frequency of Earl Grey is programmed into the machine, so it creates a toroidal field, and then creates what looks to be out of thin air, but it's just the reorganization of molecules into Earl Grey tea hot. It's in that tech
3D printer.
Yeah, and it is just as important. Like, so when you're thinking about Earl Grey tea hot with molecules that make that Earl Grey, or make that sandwich, or there's a specific order to each and every molecule. So the molecules themselves, it's not just where the molecules are placed, but it's where they're not placed. Everything about it is important, and that's what creates the specific item that you want. Replication is real. They have this technology. I have the paperwork. No, I have the documents. Replication is real. There's like it's crazy. There's a guy who breaks down plasma, and you guys know who David Beverly is, ex-NASA.
Yeah, we've had him on the show. We're going to have him back at some point this year. Yeah.
Lovely man. He he admitted that and these are my words, just so we're clear. He admitted that I sounded a little bit crazy talking about the med beds, and that it made no sense, and it's too fantastical and weird. And then he watched a course on plasma and the creation of plasma, and then what did he learn? That replicators are real, that med beds are real, and it's done through the technology. Learning about what plasma is, and it's this long, like 8-9 course thing, and it's extraordinarily dry and difficult to listen to. But yeah, no, he's like, Michael, sorry,
well, we know there's going to be signs and wonders and lying spirits in the end times. So they're holding back a lot of this technology to release it and go, look what we have, and here's what we ask of you, and you'll get all of this.
Yep.
And I guess one of my final questions on that is, what about if they can manipulate our DNA, if they need our DNA in a quantum way to entangle and create different things in the occult world, what about chimeras and different creatures and things being crafted in deep underground military bases with that same occult ritual tech? How do you think that plays in?
I think that plays in exactly as to what's going on, but I don't even think I believe there's two types of cities underground. There are ones that already existed underground, and then there are the ones that man has built, which are these deep underground military bases. Like Hollow Earth, right? So we talk about Hollow Earth with the cave systems and all that sort of stuff. So there are vast cities down there. And we talked about portals earlier. Well, I firmly believe that there are going to be portals that are going to sell us to the strange new worlds. And those strange new worlds, we're not leaving Earth. We're going into these things down, into these crazy cities down below. And we're going to be offered the chance to travel there in the end times. Again, it's part of the deception, but people are going to think they're going through a wormhole to, like Stargate. I'm watching Stargate SG-1. I never watched it when it was, and man, that is filled with so much of the future tech and all this crazy stuff. We're going to be going to those, and we're going to think we're in a whole other world with all of the glowing,
different planet, different galaxy,
the Lupharae.
And that's my opinion. That's my opinion. Why they need that whole outer space paradigm is because that's how it can work without really saying how it's happening dimensionally.
Yep, exactly.
And where these creatures really come from.
100%. The Great Deception hasn't happened yet. the great deception is when your mind is finally taken over. The build up to the great deception is destroying God in your mind, which has been the scientism, all this fake stuff that we've been going through, NASA, psychology, healthcare, like everything that has been created by the Masons is to remove God from your mind. So then you will not have the armor of God, and you can then succumb to the great deception. That's my take on it anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Thanks so much, Enoch, for coming on the show and breaking down. I think you used this term a few minutes ago, revelation of the method. I might use that for the title here. Revelation of the method of dissecting prayer and dissecting shapeshifters and skinwalkers.
Well, revelation of the method is predictive programming. So I don't know if you want to actually use that.
Well, maybe I won't use it
yeah,
then.
yeah.
But I like how it flowed. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on for your next project.
Oh my goodness, guys!
And don't take 30 minutes here. Just give us the 3-minute overview.
That's
here,
impossible.
Okay?
You know who you're talking to. All right. So
right.
I have
just hit the highlights.
I have discovered. I was a guest on another show, and it's on my Odyssey channel. I have a new revelation, and it is it basically proves that the occult know God exists and the illusion that they've created for us. And I use it again. I studied law, so I use law to prove that as well. Like everything we believe is fake, isn't real. And yeah, so I break it down for you, and I break down biblically examples of this method that God has shown us. Because He doesn't. You read the Egyptian, if you read the Egyptian books, right? They teach you directly what to do in order to get specific demonic powers, or how to survive and not suffer God's wrath. So He gives you exact examples in the Bible, especially in Genesis. So I break it all down, and then I throw it directly to, I'm in Canada, and we all believe we have a king. And so you basically...
Hey, congrats, by the way, of Trudeau getting resigning. That's that's a win, but maybe not. Who steps in? I don't know.
It's an illusion. It doesn't matter. Are
you interested in being the 51st state?
No.
Come on in.
Not at all. Did I not just mention the destruction of the United States earlier in our conversation? No, I do not wish to be part of the United States.
You can build your own wall. All right, go ahead.
All right. But anyway, so
God's not done with America yet before that destruction.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
But anyway, so I've compiled it all into a fantastic a video that I'm working on right now. It should be up in about a week, maybe 2. And even though it is Canada focused, it is world focused, because all I'm doing is breaking down the illusion of law, and that is in the United States. Like you guys are still under the thumb of England. You just don't realize it. Some people are aware of that, but most people think that the United States is completely separate, and no, they fell right back into it when they tried to do banking. So anyway, I digress, and we could talk about that. I would love to talk about that, because I want to educate people on how it actually works, how you can force the government through God by understanding how God really works, and use the scriptures, just like in the Anatomy for Prayer, to make sure that people are operating in this world the way God intended. And scene.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Oh, excellent. Well, we appreciate your mind, your deep research on various topics, practical and weird, which is kind of again, that's the wheelhouse of the show, right? So
fun.
we get practical and spiritual, and then we talk about weird stuff and what's coming. So we appreciate you, Enoch.
When you understand the weird,
thank you so much for being.
When you understand the weird, you understand how to stop it, right? So that's why I do it both.
Well, yes, yeah, and it comes full circle to kind of where we started with the anatomy of a prayer. Is these are meatier things. They require discernment. You don't swallow the whole thing, but you try to pick out the truths and the principles that are involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And build our understanding. So thank you once again, sir.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.